Hey everyone, welcome to another update for Swipey Rogue. Today I'm going to be telling you all about the free running mode. And this video I'm going to go into really the background of how it's made. That's why I have Unity open here, and then I'll do another video where I just demo the gameplay. So quickly to reiterate, the game is broken into Challenge Saga mode, where you're progressing through 4 worlds and 200 levels, and they're pre-created levels, and they're all designed with special challenges, and it's meant to be, you know, a challenge mode, something you can practice and learn the gameplay mechanics. And then free running mode is meant to be more actually running through a maze. So let's get right into it. I'll do the gameplay demo later on, so I'm just going to open up the level editor. Level editor? What? Yep, that's how I made all of this. So the challenge levels were all created with the level editor because they were fixed. They were meant to be, you know, very specific. Here, I'll load it up right now. There's nothing well, there is small randomizations in the normal mode, the challenge mode, but that's just in terms of where pickups are placed, and the pickups are never placed within the main speedrun path. So everything is very predictable when you're playing challenge mode. So I created, you know, in the editor, a mechanism for you know, editing like a huge series of rooms and linking them together and being able to load them into here and have a palette that I can, you know, build things with. So in Rogue mode, it's entirely different. So I'm still using the editor to create the core elements for the generative system. So the mazes are procedurally generated with lots of randomization in the free running mode of the game, and the rooms themselves within those mazes are also procedurally generated with lots of randomization, but they're not generated from the ether. It's not just a computer program algorithm running. So what I did is I created, so again, this is our many worlds. So when I'm in Rogue World, I'm looking at, this is the Molten area, this is the Frozen area, this is the Gadget area, and this is the Magic area. So what I did is I basically broke down, here, let's go into Maze mode, I'll start there. I broke down all of the different types of shapes that I'll need to create a maze. I need a 4-way hallway, I need a horizontal hallway, a vertical hallway, a T-junction in every shape, a corner junction in every shape, a dead end in every shape, and this allows me to make any kind of maze possible. So I decided I'd use my editor and then create a bunch of tiles. And then what I've done is here I've already made 100. And what they are is they're just the beginnings. So it's not an actual maze, it's the beginnings of a maze, and it's bits and pieces. And then in the game, there's an algorithm, there's no point showing you the code right now, but it takes this and it understands like where there's points for embellishment. So I can tag these elements using my information over here to allow the program when it's loading to embellish on it in the empty space. So what I can do then is create a whole bunch of seeds. It's almost like, you know, DNA, you know, it's a bunch of seeds of possibilities for mazes, and there's branch points where it can, the algorithm can take it further. And then in addition, I can tag entire branches to not be included or randomly not be included. So all of these, I have 100 starting points that have really, oh my gosh, the combination permutations of changes upon each of these mazes is not endless, obviously, but it's up there. It's pretty high. So I'm pretty excited about that. This is really awesome. The other thing I can also do is tag entrances and exits. So I can tag a bunch of things and say, consider this as an entrance when you first load the maze, and consider this as an exit when you first load the maze. So it'll load it all, it'll collect all the entrances, and then it'll randomly decide which of those to use as the entrance. Then it'll randomly decide which of the others to use as the exit. So there's even further level of, you know, procedural changes that can happen when a maze loads. In addition to that, it can also flip the entrances for the exits and choose one for the other and one for the other. So it'll never happen where you get one next to another, but it could be opposite. And then, like I said, various branches may or may not be turned off, and various new branches may grow when it actually loads the level. So it uses all these as seeds to sort of learn, not necessarily learn, but where to begin and how to branch and what space it has to go in. So the combinations and permutations are huge. It's something like, I think I broke it down to, there's roughly about 64 possible combinations or permutations within any maze, and then there's 100 mazes. And then this is where it gets really interesting. All these different room types are basically shapes, right? So it's a corner, it's an L, it's a whatever. So if we go back out of the maze mode and instead look at the one of the different rooms, so here's the Molten area. What I've done is I've created a whole series of similarly starting points of what a vertical hallway could be. And all of these, again, like the mazes, it's just a starting point. So when this loads, I have the ability, and I've tagged everything to be randomized. So if we look at the details over here, I can look at any of these elements and they're all tagged to be randomized. So, oops, sorry. What it does is then when the level loads, all these different things may or may not even show up. So there's the additional levels of variation that happens on top of everything else. And then things like this, in this mode, these are the possible places where enemies may spawn, but they won't necessarily spawn there. Again, when the level loads, it'll procedurally decide and pick a random amount of them. And things like these, the number of, here, let me load up some other ones. Here, the number of enemies, the types of enemies, the number of obstacles, and even the numbers of different types of obstacles that may or may not load is procedurally generated based on your progress in the maps. So if you're currently, early on in the game, it's going to spawn less earlier enemies and less obstacles. As you progress, through your run, it'll be spawning more and more and more. The difficulty ramps up crazily. So I'm really excited about this. There's just an insane amount of variation. Each one of these rooms, again, I think I figured out the permutations on these. Each one has at least, I remember 12 variants. I sort of made it as a rule for myself within the level itself in terms of things that can be turned on and off. There's always a minimum of at least a half dozen, but usually way more obstacles that may or may not be turned on and off. And then there's always like about 8 or 9, usually more enemy spawn points, which may or may not be turned on or off. And again, the health spawn points may or may not be turned on or off. And in addition, there's ranges for all of these possibilities. So within the game, it's not just like, oh, there's a 50% chance if lava will show up or not. It's depending on how far you've progressed through the game. So there's ranges. So if you're early on in your run, like you've only visited 2 rooms, there's a lower percentage. And then if you've visited many rooms, there's a higher percentage. And then each of these things has its own set of ranges and percentages that I can draw from. And then all of these, again, it's meant to like create an insane amount of variety when you play it. I have to do the math and add it all up. It's pretty crazy. So all these different room shapes, all the variations of each one filled with all layers of randomization within it. And then on top of that, it's within a maze that has all its levels of potential randomization and, changes and branching and things like that. So I'm really excited. This is way too long. I can't believe this went so long, but I wanted to go back and quickly go over this part of the game that I've been developing. I think it's a novel way of putting together a huge amount of variety. It is using, an editor as a base to create the seeds, like I said, but then the code when it loads does a lot of sort of procedural work to sort of decide how it's going to actually reconfigure all this sort of core data, which ultimately is the same. I've written things before without editors that are strictly 100% procedural, and it's still the same. You're still writing algorithms, which are patterns, and you're beginning with patterns. So I just drew my core patterns and let the procedural algorithms modify them in the game when it's loaded. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys, this is like the sort of the intense, like huge amount of possible variation that's going to be coming at you when you're playing the game in free running mode. And I'll do another demo now to show you all the different things that actually happen when it loads and plays, and where my progress is with that. I'm really excited with it. Here's a bunch of the gadget ones also. It's pretty awesome. It's a fun mode. It was, it was intended, like I said, it was intended to be in the game from the very beginning, and it's just, just like I said, that menu item has been here since the beginning, and it's kind of really important to me to finally be able to share it. I had to save it for the end because the point was to create the challenge mode, and that was the place to design and test and really thrash on all the gameplay mechanics. And then once they're all finalized, then I could create the free running mode, which is the procedural base, because then I just take everything that's been created with, for the game, and then now reconfigure it in lots of like amazing ways. So really excited about this. I'm happy to finally be able to share it. This is a ridiculously long update. I'm sure no one will even watch it. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll do another update with an actual gameplay right now. So see you later. Bye.